So today we'll be reacting to a video by the Archcast, channel run by this guy right here, Nathan Hilbrand. And I like his content, and this is a topic that interests me, and we'll see how it goes.
Interesting little immigration statistic has been popping up on the internet again recently. One showing that out of 321 Palestinian refugees that were allowed to settle in Denmark, the majority either went to jail or became some form of criminal or became dependent.
Just a little background. Palestinians specifically, out of all immigrants, I would expect to be the worst in terms of criminality, just because of where they came from. It's like basically a war-torn, not even a nation. And a lot of them were involved in terrorist activities, or it shapes them. If you operate outside the law your entire life, it becomes difficult to operate within it later. So statistics involving Palestinian refugees are going to be abnormal. Still, they can still be useful, but just keep in mind they'll be a little bit abnormal.
Dependent upon the state for social welfare. This, of course, is a rather damning condemnation of immigration at large, even if the sample group here is a fairly small portion of people, 321 individuals. And this factoid has been debunked several times.
It is damning for immigration at large, but you have to keep in mind Palestinians are a special category. I expect them to be worse than any other type of immigrant.
Now by progressive sources, but is it actually untrue? Is it actually misleading? Well, no. Not according to the Danish state, anyways. Immigration statistic has been popping up on the internet again recently. One showing that out of 321 Palestinian refugees that were allowed to settle in Denmark, the majority either went to jail or became some form of criminal or became dependent upon the state for social welfare.
Refugees from war-torn places are especially bad in terms of being able to integrate in peaceful societies. And so that's primarily why Palestinians have such trouble. But it doesn't matter the reason, ultimately. What matters is taking in such people is bad for any country. And it's better to try to send money and help them wherever they are than to put your own citizens at risk.
This, of course, is a rather damning condemnation of immigration at large, even if the sample group here is a fairly small portion of people, 321 individuals. And this factoid has been debunked several times now by progressive sources, but is it actually untrue? Is it actually misleading? Well, no. Not according to the Danish state, anyways. And seeing as this has been popping up back online again, and since I do read Danish, I figured we'd go over it. So, this comes from the Foreign Affairs and Integration Ministry of Denmark, where they received a question as to whether or not the government could account for the fate of the 321 Palestinians that received a stay, so asylum, in Denmark in 1992 after a special permission was granted to them. So, this requires a little bit of pre-explanation. In the 1990s, Europe didn't really understand much, if anything, indeed, about immigration. We viewed everyone beyond our borders as basically just Europeans with a different skin color, and therefore anyone and everyone could easily integrate. It wouldn't even require any...
No, that's just not true. More alien culture, the harder it is for them to integrate.
Real effort, really. And so when 320 Palestinians arrived in Denmark and were refused their initial asylum request, but then went on to occupy a church for 5 months, well, the Danish populace went, oh, these poor innocent people, these starving victims of war, we simply must change the law to allow them to stay. And this was also caused by a signing campaign of Danish priests. Priests, much like this
Asmund calls this type of stuff suicidal empathy. I agree. You should not be taking in dangerous people out of some sort of empathy. What about your own people? What about the people that will be hurt by those people?
This individual right here. And I use the term priest with very large quotation marks there, as political activist with a different name is probably more correct. 600 Danish priests signed a petition for the Danish government to allow these 321 refugees to stay because, I mean, after all, if they were willing to live in a church for half a year, sleeping on the floor, etc., these were desperate refugees. They were the ones seeking a home, salvation from war and...
There is undoubtedly an entire group of activists that guided these Palestinian refugees to their protests and staying in the church. That type of thing doesn't happen organically.
Predation. Surely, if Denmark embraced them, then they would embrace Denmark in turn, right? At least that's how we thought back then. Reality turns out to have been somewhat harsher than that. As out of the 321, 321, was it? 321, yes. 204 of them have received either fines or gone to jail one way or another. That's a pretty bad statistic right there. So 38 received, oh God, what's the English term for ubetinget fängsel? That's when you go to jail, no questions. The judge is like, no, whatever you did, it's really, really serious. You're going to jail right now. No pleading, no bargaining. 33
That's bad.
received betinget fängsel, which is where they go like, okay, you don't have to go to jail, but we'll keep an eye on you. If you do anything else wrong during that period, it's straight off to the slammer.
Probation type punishment, I guess.
And 133 received various fines, but these are all fines above $150, so 1,500 odd Danish kroners, and they are not speeding tickets. They specifically here overträdelser av färdselsloven ingår icke i statistiken, so they are not counting traffic fines. These are all pretty serious fines right here.
So the type of fines you get for breaking the law.
As by and large in Western
Serious laws.
countries like this, if you commit a crime the first time around, even if it's somewhat serious, you'll usually be left off with a fine. Because we don't...
Wow. Well, that explains a lot. So that 133 really should have gone to jail.
really want to jail people unless it's something really serious. So the fact that 204
Like probably robbery, maybe. I don't know.
in total have either gone straight to jail, been threatened with jail, or had heavy fines laid upon them is very, very...
Maybe like assault and battery type of charges would result in a fine, I guess. Robbery probably would be jail, though, when I think about it.
very, very serious. Or, also, this also only counts them once if they've committed multiple offenses as well. So this can't be like one guy committing 204 crimes. These are individuals out of those 321. Okay, that already looks pretty gosh darn bad, doesn't it?
Yep, about what I expected. It's not easy for... If you live your entire life outside the law, it's hard to live within it afterwards.
Okay, so let's look at the crime statistics in Denmark in general, right? Incarcerated by ethnic origin in Denmark from 2023. Open prisons are 71% Danish, so you might now wonder, what is an open prison? Well, in American terms, it is a minimum security prison, although it's an even more minimum security prison. To put it like this, can you spot the prison on this picture? Can you spot the correctional facility? Because you are looking right at it. This is the prison. This is Kragshovd Fängsel. Kragshov jail.
It's always interesting to see how the law and prison systems and other government organizations work in other countries.
This is a prison. This is a prison. No, there aren't any walls. There are minimal guards, and the people are kept in by, at most, a fence, if even that, a literal hedgerow on this side here. That's it. And yes, they...
What keeps people in these type of prisons is the threat that if they escape, when they're caught again, they're going to go to a real prison.
Do have their own little play yard there for families and visiting children. This is an open...
For families and visiting children. But again, for the types of crimes that would have you sent here, that's acceptable. I guess it's nice that a father would get to see his children.
Prison. The majority of people in open prisons are Danish, which means that there's basically no chance of them trying to escape. They're in there for very minor crimes, or the government, the judicial system more correctly, has simply gone, okay, you are clearly a person who simply fell on really shit terms. We want to reintegrate you rather than punish you. In closed prisons, there's 50% Danish. House arrests, there's 54% Danish. And in Copenhagen prison, the big one, there's 33. So immigrants then make up in total 44.3% of the incarcerated population of Denmark.
That should strike you as completely insane, because either just that statistic either means that there's a huge immigrant population, or that immigrants are massively disproportionately represented in crime, and it's more the latter.
Whereas they make up about 10% of the total population. With another 3.41...
Since the beginning of time, there's been a link between crime and poverty. You let in a huge amount of poor people into your countries, crime will go up. That's just the way it goes. And these type of refugee immigrants are poor. That means they are more likely to commit crimes. If you're accepting a wealthy European that has a good job and is moving to a different job, it's a completely different situation. But if you're accepting those that just have the clothes on their back when they arrive, and you accept a lot of those, you're going to have more crime.
1% of descendants. So somehow 13% make up 50%. It is weird how often that statistic seems to just hammer itself home yet.
I would always expect that, because type of immigrants we're getting are poor. American that has a house or has property has more to lose by committing crimes, so they don't commit them. But someone who has nothing to lose, they're more prone to commit crimes because they have nothing to lose. The link between poverty and crime, I've already said, it's long and established.
Again. And as for the closed prisons in Denmark, the maximum security ones, well, they look like this. This is a Danish prison.
So luxurious compared to our American prisons.
Danish prison. And to be fair, I'm Norwegian. I can't cast any rocks here. If anything, our prisons are even more lenient, with, again, like this being the room.
This looks like a hotel room that I'd pay like hundreds of dollars a night to stay in. All it's missing is like a TV, and I mean, look at that. I've stayed in hostels that are worse than that.
Rooms. To most people, this is a vacation. Indeed, like Scandinavian prisons.
So you immigrate to Norway, commits murder or some horrible crime, and then you live in this relative luxury the rest of your life compared to where you came from.
Have become famous amongst various...
Is that a disincentive for committing crime?
various bands of Eastern European criminals, for example, who just steal shit as basically a vacation. So what they'll do is they'll break into a house or a shop or whatever, and they'll get whatever they can. They'll bring it out and they'll ship it out of the country, either literally via the mail services or via a courier truck that shows up and drives the goods over the border, right? And if they get caught, so what? They go in front of a court system, they can walk free most of that time. In fact, most of them simply just skip the country, and those who don't are arrested are kept there as a flight risk.
Yeah, because of course they're flight risk, those type of people. You have to understand, some immigrants, they come in just to commit crime. Their intention is to commit crime, because if you're an outsider and your home is in a different country, that means you can flee easily. No matter if something goes wrong, it's easier to commit crimes in a country that is not your own because you have a backup plan. If it's something like robbery, they aren't going to go after and try to extradite you from wherever you are run off to.
Well, they spend 6 months in what they view as a fucking hotel with free food and free lodging for 6 months. It's literally a vacation to them. Like this, if you're living in Eastern Europe,
Liberal, progressive mindset behind this type of luxurious prison room, I just can't.
this is pretty sweet. But okay then. What about the beneficiaries of the state? Well, we go down here. So these are the numbers for the people who became in some way dependent upon...
That's what's really bad about accepting the migrants that are, hardened criminals that are coming into your country, because that's always one group, is they come in, they commit a crime, they hurt your citizens, they hurt your businesses, hurt your economy, and if they get caught, you have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars keeping them in jail. So it's lose-lose. You lose once when they rob or they kill, and then you lose again with all the money you have to spend processing them in court and keeping them in prison. Aspen's idea of making prisoners work, I think I would actually apply that especially to illegal migrants, because they come in here, if they commit a crime, the taxpayer of that country should not have to pay for their jail.
The state or received state benefits, with the largest number being Förtidspension, which is when you go off with your pension before you're supposed to. Now, to be fair, the pension age in Denmark is 70, which is pretty damn high. It is, I think, the highest in Europe, in fact, so there's quite a lot of people who take their pension before they must take their pension, or when they're allowed to take the full part of it. But as you can see also here, a fair few have also taken all various other benefits as well, with the total number then being, as you can see, the varying years here, with the number of variations being things like unemployment checks, for example. But again, the majority of them have gone on benefits. And those
They haven't contributed anything. They've been a leech since before they were accepted. They were at that church, they were a leech, draining resources that deal with this stupid protest. And when they became legal, they've leached from benefits ever since. On top of that, there's the crimes they've been committing. Just objectively, Norway would have been better off without them, by any metric.
Those who haven't gone on benefits, well, they've broken in and stolen shit.
And any type of empathy, we have to send them to a country, and let me put it to you this way: it is far cheaper to give them a salary to live on in a different country. It costs far less to live in. If you send them to a country in Africa, you can even pay for their housing and food for just a fraction of what it would cost in a European country. So if you're worried about them starving to death, send them somewhere else and pay for them there. It's huge cost saving. It makes no sense to bring them into a European country.
So, yeah, not good, not very good at all. And again, to be fair, this is a specific group of people, those 321 people. But here's the thing. the entire argument for why they should be allowed in the country to begin with was that they were clearly desperate, which is why
The problem with that argument, the huge red flag and problem is desperate people. What do desperate people also do? Desperate people commit crimes. Biggest reason people commit crimes is they're desperate for cash for whatever reason. You let in desperate people, they're going to commit crimes.
they occupied the church for half a year. Surely somebody willing to do that is genuinely in need, right? These must be the genuine refugees, the people fleeing hardship who have no choice and are actually seeking a new home, right? If even they will be majoritively criminals.
Again, I have to disagree with his argument. His general point, I'll agree with it, but his argument, they're desperate, that's what drives them to crime. So, yes, you should expect desperate people to be more criminal than non-desperate people.
Or otherwise dependent upon the state, the entire argument for immigration basically collapses on its face, because it means that the amount of immigrants who are actually able to integrate into...
Reason personally, I absolutely don't accept the desperate thing is nearly everyone in a third world country is desperate. Why should one group of desperate people get preferential treatment? I'd rather... If you put the gun to my head, you have to accept people from third world in a European country, I would go and accept those that are trying to come to Europe legally. I would never... Everyone's desperate. I'd rather take people that want to come here, that are desperate and are doing the right way to come here, than desperate and coming here illegally.
Western society, into Scandinavian society in this case, is tiny. Is a small grouping out of the total. You are looking at something like 30%, maybe. And if you take into consideration taking more out of the system than they give in, you're looking at an even smaller percentage than that. In essence...
They're a drain on the country. They lower the standard of living. It might be a small amount, only 300 people. But you expand that to all the others, they overall drastically lower the quality of life for citizens by draining resources in multiple ways.
If we were to have actually decent immigration to fulfill the ideas of taking in the people who genuinely want to be here, we'd have to cut immigration in Europe down to maybe a quarter, and even that is a bit of an optimistic interpretation, really. So yeah, this is a fairly damning statistic, even more so than even the overall numbers.
I enjoy how angry he is about all this. You can hear it in his calm voice.
Which, yet again, don't exactly look very good when you have a tiny, 10-13% of the population committing 44.3% of the crime.
And that's not even taking account liberal judges that are being especially lenient towards the poor migrants. If without that, it would be even higher.
And again, closed prisons, so the most serious crimes, 21%. Immigrants commit serious crimes at twice the rate at which they commit less serious crimes. So, what can we take away from this? Well, exactly the argument that many on the right have now been using this data to say, namely that immigration seems to be a hopeless numbers game. If Denmark couldn't integrate 300 people, what hope does anyone have of integrating hundreds of thousands?
Thing is, integrating people that come legally. People that come legally plan ahead. They have a reason for wanting to come to your country. Maybe they admire your culture or whatever. They're more likely to adapt and adopt your cultures and traditions and values. People that come illegally already have this layer of distance. They're already disrespecting your basic laws to just be in the country. You can't expect those type of people to adapt easily, to integrate easily.
thousands or millions if 320 of the genuinely starving, the downtrodden, and the dispossessed still cannot find it within their hearts to actually embrace the country that saved.
Again, this particular argument, the fact that they're desperate means that that they started out desperate means that they were prone to crime before coming. They've lived their life. If you live most of your life desperate, you're more likely to have committed crimes during that period. And in arriving in a country desperate, that means you have nothing to your name and you're still, to a lesser degree, desperate and more likely to commit crimes. So his thing about they're desperate and they still fail to integrate, my counter would be the fact that they're desperate means that there was less chance of them integrating to begin with.
Saves them?
It's not surprising they turn to crime in large numbers.
What fucking hope is there for any of this system?
The hope is that finally a lot of the statistics like this, the knowledge of how much crime immigrants are committing is spreading more and more because the mainstream media is losing its grasp on populations in the United States and Europe. And that is giving rise to populism, with will of the people, common sense, whatever you want to call it, that is increasingly anti-immigration. And I could tell you, it will get to the point where some people, probably in some of the more extreme cases, will get their citizens in those countries stripped away when population, once they really start reversing this trend, Europe is not going to accept stopping to be a Christian Christian area, and they're going to. Some of the people should never have gone citizenship, and you're going to see some of that reversed. And the degree it's going to happen, I don't know, but like I just remember a story from Spain. Here we go. Spanish cops uncovering a fraud network of fake residencies and sham marriages used by illegals. You have people that got their citizenship through fake marriage. Yeah, you're going to have people like that are going to get their citizenship stripped from them. And I think that's right. If you obtained your citizenship through fraud, you don't deserve to have it. And knowledge of this type of stuff, which has been going on for decades, but only now is reaching widespread awareness, is one small reason to be optimistic.
Yeah. Immigration. It is going to be remembered as one of the great mistakes in our history books.
Agreed. And it was an intentional mistake. It honestly, it all comes from that ESF or that American deep state. Because if they spread the ideology to accept migrants to the U.S. population, there's no way to prevent that ideology from also going to Europe. And for the same reason, it's cheap labor. Any old readers of my blog know all the different schemes and mechanisms the ESF used to bring down inflation. And one of them is immigration, like unlimited illegal immigration. And so everywhere that Western media has large sway and that is a first world country that is attractive to immigrants, yeah, you're going to have a lot of illegal immigration. Practically the only slight exception is Japan, that has always been so xenophobic. But even there, it seems that recently there's been a lot of immigration.
Chapters will be written on how Europe and the West's view of the world, of everyone being equal, of culture basically just being a costume, was an enormous, unbelievable mistake that brought the Western world to the fucking brink of ruin.
Agreed. But it's just one of the things bring Europe to the brink of ruin, but it's a big one.
Oh, well, I say the brink.
And the others, some of them are financial. the same insane borrowing, endless borrowing to finance benefits and stuff like Social Security. It's endless borrowing to finance growth is not a long-term viable strategy for an economy, and the United States and Europe are suffering from that too. So illegal immigration isn't another big thing bringing them to ruin, but it isn't the only one.
We're not over it yet, but we might still be approaching at breakneck speed, so, you know, I'm being optimistic. Until next time, I've been Arch. Thank you all very much for watching, and I do hope to see you all again.
It was a pleasure, Nate. All right, that'll do it for this video. That was a lot of fun watching this, and go check out the Archcast. Also, subscribe and like this video, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.